What if I told you that the greatest empire in human history, the one that gave us roads, laws, and even the idea of the modern republic, collapsed not in a day but over centuries? From a humble village on the banks of the Tiber to a global superpower, and finally to ruin, this is the true story of how Rome rose, ruled, and fell. Welcome to Epoch 60 Degree, where we explore history with depth and clarity. I'm Dev, a software engineer based in Australia, and today we're going to unravel the epic timeline of the Roman Empire like never before.
The story of Romulus and Remus is a tale deeply woven into the fabric of Roman identity. Abandoned as infants, the twin brothers were said to have been rescued and nursed by a she-wolf. This act of nature, occurring near the Palatine Hill, became a potent symbol of Rome's destined greatness, signifying survival against the odds and a connection to the natural world. Romulus, after killing Remus in a dispute, became the city's founder and first king, lending his name to the burgeoning city on the Tiber. While shrouded in mythology, the legend of Romulus and Remus hints at a historical reality. Archaeological excavations around the Palatine Hill have unearthed remnants of settlements dating back to the 8th century BCE, corroborating the traditional founding date of Rome in 753 BCE. These discoveries, including pottery fragments and traces of huts, provide tangible evidence of an early community thriving in the region, supporting the narrative of Rome's humble beginnings as a small village on the banks of the Tiber River. For centuries, Rome was ruled by kings, a period marked by both growth and discontent. The reigns of these early rulers saw the city expand its influence, but their rule was also associated with Etruscan dominance, a neighboring civilization that exerted considerable control over Rome. However, the tide turned in the late 6th century BCE, around 509 BCE, when the Romans, led by aristocratic families, overthrew the last Etruscan king, Tarquinius Superbus, marking a pivotal moment in their history. This revolution brought an end to the monarchy and led to the establishment of the Roman Republic, a new form of government that would shape the destiny of Rome and leave an enduring legacy on Western civilization. The rejection of monarchy represented a profound shift in Roman political thought, emphasizing shared power and civic responsibility instead of absolute rule. The nascent republic, while fragile in its early years, carried the seeds of innovation and ambition, poised to embark on a path of unprecedented expansion and influence. At the heart of the Roman Republic lay a complex and carefully balanced system of governance. Power was distributed among various institutions, designed to prevent any one person or group from gaining absolute control. 2 consuls, elected annually, served as the highest magistrates, leading the army and administering justice. The Senate, a council composed of elder statesmen, held significant influence, advising the consuls and shaping policy. The assemblies, representing the broader citizenry, possessed the authority to elect officials, pass laws, and declare war, ensuring a degree of popular participation in government. This intricate system, while remarkably resilient, was not without its challenges. As Rome expanded its territory through military conquest, coming into conflict with neighboring tribes like the Samnites and the Gauls, internal tensions began to surface. Powerful families wielding considerable influence within the Senate often clashed over political offices and access to resources. The growing disparity between the wealthy elite and the common citizens, exacerbated by the spoils of war and land distribution, further fueled social unrest. These early signs of internal division hinted at the challenges that lay ahead for the Republic, as it grappled with the complexities of governing a growing and increasingly diverse population. Despite internal strife and external threats, the early Roman Republic laid the groundwork for its eventual dominance. The Romans displayed a remarkable talent for adaptation and innovation, particularly in the realms of military strategy and infrastructure. Their legions, renowned for their discipline and effectiveness, gradually subdued the Italian peninsula, securing Rome's position as a major power in the region. Moreover, the Romans recognized the importance of infrastructure in unifying their expanding territories. They embarked on ambitious projects like the construction of roads and aqueducts, facilitating trade, communication, and the movement of troops, essential elements in consolidating their control and fostering a sense of unity across their domains. Through a combination of military prowess, strategic alliances, and shrewd diplomacy, the Romans navigated the complexities of their time. Their early successes, however, were merely a prelude to the grandeur that awaited them. As they continued to expand their sphere of influence, they laid the foundation for an empire that would leave an indelible mark on history. The Roman Republic, initially confined to Italy, embarked on an extraordinary journey of expansion. Rome's geographic location in the heart of the Mediterranean made it a crossroads for trade and cultural exchange. This central position also attracted ambitious rivals and exposed Rome to potential conflicts. Roman expansion was a gradual process fueled by military prowess, strategic alliances, and a pragmatic approach to incorporating conquered territories. By the 3rd century BC, the Romans had subdued their neighbors on the peninsula. From the Etruscans in the north to the Greek city-states in the south, Rome's military organization, its citizen army, and its willingness to grant conquered peoples varying degrees of autonomy fostered loyalty among new subjects. With Italy secured, Rome's gaze turned outward. The growing power of Carthage, a Phoenician city-state in North Africa, presented a significant challenge. The clash between these two rising powers was inevitable and would shape the destiny of the ancient world. The Punic Wars, a series of 3 conflicts fought between Rome and Carthage, marked a turning point in Roman history. The First Punic War, from 264 to 241 BC, erupted over control of the strategic island of Sicily. Rome, initially lacking a strong navy, adapted to the maritime challenge with innovative tactics like the corvus. After a protracted struggle, Rome emerged victorious, gaining control of Sicily and establishing its naval superiority. The Second Punic War, from 218 to 201 BC, witnessed one of the most daring military campaigns in history. Hannibal Barca, the brilliant Carthaginian general, led his army, including war elephants, on a treacherous journey across the Alps to strike at the heart of Roman power. Despite stunning victories, Rome refused to surrender, mobilizing resources and implementing a war of attrition. Under Scipio Africanus, Rome took the fight to Carthage, culminating in the decisive Battle of Zama in 202 BC, ending the Second Punic War in a Roman victory. The Third Punic War, from 149 to 146 BC, saw Rome besiege and ultimately destroy Carthage, solidifying its dominance over the western Mediterranean. The destruction of Carthage marked the end of a centuries-old rivalry. With Carthage vanquished, Rome's expansion continued. The conquest of the Hellenistic kingdoms in the eastern Mediterranean followed a similar pattern, responding to perceived threats, forging alliances and gradually extending Roman influence. The Macedonian Wars, from 214 to 168 BC, saw Rome pitted against the Antigonid dynasty, heirs to Alexander the Great's empire in Macedon. The Roman legions proved superior to the Macedonian phalanx, securing victories at the battles of Cynoscephalae in 197 BC and Pydna in 168 BC, bringing Macedon and Greece under Roman control. Further east, the Seleucid Empire faced Rome's growing might, culminating in a decisive Roman victory at the Battle of Magnesia. This victory extended Roman influence into Asia Minor and established Rome as a major player in the eastern Mediterranean. Egypt, once a powerful kingdom under the Ptolemies, also fell under Rome's sway, becoming a Roman province in 30 BC after the defeat of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. This marked the end of the Hellenistic era and solidified Roman control over the entire Mediterranean basin. Rome's epic expansion brought immense wealth and power to the city. The influx of tribute, plunder, and slaves fueled economic growth and transformed Roman society. However, these conquests also brought about profound social, economic, and political changes, creating new challenges for the Roman Republic. One significant consequence was the rise of a wealthy, landed elite, with victorious generals amassing vast estates worked by a growing slave population. This concentration of land and wealth led to the displacement of small farmers, contributing to widespread unemployment and poverty among the lower classes. The influx of slaves depressed wages for free laborers, exacerbating social tensions. The traditional values of the Roman Republic, such as civic duty and simplicity, were eroded by the influx of wealth and luxury goods from conquered territories. This growing disparity between the rich and poor, coupled with the erosion of traditional values, created a breeding ground for social unrest. The Roman Republic in the 1st century BCE was a society in turmoil. The old systems were creaking, inequality was rampant. The traditional ruling class, the patricians, were losing their grip on power. New men, ambitious and ruthless, saw their opportunity. Among them was Gaius Julius Caesar, a general of unmatched brilliance and a populist who understood the desires of the Roman people. Caesar's campaigns in Gaul, north of Italy, were a testament to his military genius. He conquered vast territories, securing his reputation as a hero. He was loved by his soldiers, feared by his enemies, and admired by the masses. His victories brought him vast wealth and even greater popularity, but they also brought him into conflict with the Roman Senate. The Senate, suspicious of Caesar's growing power, ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar faced a stark choice. To obey the Senate was to surrender his ambition and leave himself vulnerable to his enemies. To defy the Senate was to invite civil war. In 49 BCE, Caesar made his choice. He crossed the Rubicon River, the boundary between Gaul and Italy, with his legions at his back. This single act was a declaration of war against the Roman Senate, a Rubicon moment for Caesar and for Rome. The die was cast. Caesar's march on Rome was swift and decisive. His enemies, led by the Stoic Pompey the Great, fled to the east. Civil war engulfed the Republic. Brother fought against brother, city against city, as the very foundations of Roman society crumbled. Caesar pursued his enemies across the Mediterranean, from Greece to Egypt, his legions crushing all resistance. His victory at Pharsalus in 48 BCE shattered Pompey's forces and left Caesar the undisputed master of Rome. Cleopatra, the alluring queen of Egypt, became his lover and bore him a son, Caesarion. Returning to Rome as dictator for life, Caesar implemented sweeping reforms. He granted citizenship to conquered peoples, reformed the calendar, and launched ambitious building projects. But his growing power and his disregard for the traditions of the Republic alienated many of his former allies. On the Ides of March 44 BCE, a group of senators, fearing Caesar's ambition and claiming he sought to make himself king, assassinated him in the theatre of Pompeii. Their daggers, meant to save the Republic, instead plunged it into a new round of civil wars. Caesar's assassination created a power vacuum in Rome. Into this vacuum stepped his great-nephew and adopted heir, Gaius Octavius, later known as Augustus. Only 18 years old at the time of Caesar's death, Octavian proved to be a shrewd and ruthless politician. Octavian, along with Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, and Marcus Lepidus, formed the Second Triumvirate. They ruthlessly hunted down Caesar's assassins and consolidated their control over the Roman world. But the alliance was an uneasy one, riven by personal ambition and mistrust. The rivalry between Octavian and Mark Antony, once brothers in arms, became an open struggle for supremacy. Antony, entangled in a passionate affair with Cleopatra, now the queen of a resurgent Egypt, represented the allure and threat of the East. Octavian, embodying Roman virtue and discipline, positioned himself as the defender of the Republic. Their conflict culminated in the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Octavian's fleet, commanded by the brilliant general Agrippa, crushed the combined forces of Antony and Cleopatra. Defeated and despairing, Antony and Cleopatra fled back to Egypt, where they both committed suicide. With the defeat of Antony and Cleopatra, Octavian stood alone as the master of Rome. In 27 BCE, he formally relinquished his dictatorial powers and was bestowed with the title Augustus the Revered One by the Senate. This marked the birth of the Roman Empire and Augustus, its first emperor. Augustus was careful to preserve the facade of the Republic. He maintained the Senate and other institutions of the old order, but in reality all power flowed from him. He was a master of propaganda, using his patronage to cultivate artists and writers who celebrated his reign and legitimized his rule. The reign of Augustus ushered in an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana. For 2 centuries, the Roman world experienced a golden age. Augustus's rule saw the flourishing of infrastructure, trade and culture. Roads were built, aqueducts flowed, and grand monuments were erected throughout the empire. Augustus's legacy is complex and enduring. He ended a century of civil war and ushered in an era of peace and prosperity. He transformed the Roman Republic into an empire, laying the foundation for centuries of Roman power. Yet, he also extinguished the flame of Roman republicanism, a flame that would never be rekindled. He was, in the words of the historian Tacitus, a man who found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. The seeds of change, new faiths, and Roman fears. During Trajan's reign, a new faith was quietly spreading throughout the empire: Christianity. Originating in the Roman province of Judea, Christianity offered a message of hope and salvation, particularly appealing to the poor and marginalized. Its monotheistic beliefs, however, stood in stark contrast to the polytheistic traditions of Rome. This new faith, with its emphasis on spiritual rather than worldly power, was seen as a threat by some within the Roman establishment. Christians faced persecution, often accused of atheism and sedition. Yet despite the dangers, Christianity continued to spread, its message resonating with people across the empire. The seeds of change were sown, though it would take centuries for Christianity to transform from a persecuted sect into the official religion of the Roman Empire. And the Roman foundation. The Roman Empire, for all its glory, was not without its flaws. Its economic might relied heavily on slave labor, a system inherently unstable and morally questionable. Corruption, a perennial problem, festered within the ranks of the administration, eroding public trust. Political instability, marked by succession crises and power struggles, threatened the continuity of governance. Trajan's reign, though prosperous and expansionist, did little to address these underlying issues. In fact, the empire's vast size and reliance on conquest created new challenges. The cost of maintaining legions across such a vast territory was enormous, placing a heavy burden on the imperial treasury. These internal pressures, though masked by the brilliance of Trajan's victories, would eventually contribute to the empire's decline. The Roman Empire, for a brief time, stood as the heart of the known world, yet even at its zenith, the seeds of its eventual fall were already being sown. The Roman Empire. Once a beacon of power, its reach spanned from Britannia to Syria. By the 3rd century CE, cracks began to appear. Inflation soared, devaluing the currency and crippling the economy. Plague swept across the land, leaving countless dead. The Roman legions, once the terror of the known world, found themselves stretched thin. Barbarian tribes, sensing weakness, tested the empire's borders with increasing audacity. The crisis deepened as emperors rose and fell in quick succession. Political instability only exacerbated the empire's woes. Yet, even as darkness threatened to engulf Rome, a glimmer of hope emerged. A tough soldier named Diocletian seized the throne and divided the empire in two: the Western Roman Empire, with its capital in Rome, and the Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital in Constantinople. Diocletian's division of the empire was a desperate attempt to salvage a dying giant. The East, wealthier and more urbanized, flourished under its new emperors. The West, however, continued to struggle. Barbarian incursions continued unabated. The Goths, Visigoths, Vandals and others pressed against the empire's borders. Roman legions, weakened by years of constant warfare, found it increasingly difficult to hold back the tide. The year 410 CE marked a turning point. Alaric, king of the Visigoths, led his warriors into the heart of the empire, culminating in the unthinkable, the sack of Rome. For centuries, Rome had stood as a symbol of power and permanence. Its fall sent shockwaves throughout the empire and beyond, yet the empire lingered on for almost another century, a shadow of its former self. The final decades of the Western Roman Empire were marked by a succession of weak emperors, puppet rulers controlled by powerful generals. The true power behind the throne shifted to military strongmen, often of barbarian origin. In 476 CE, the inevitable finally came to pass. Odoacer, a Germanic general, deposed the last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus Augustus. This event is now seen by historians as more of a symbolic end to a long decline. The Roman Senate sent envoys to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople, Zeno, acknowledging him as the sole ruler of the Roman Empire. The Western Roman Empire, after centuries of dominance, had breathed its last. But even as the West fell into darkness, a new dawn was breaking in the East. The Eastern Roman Empire, later known as the Byzantine Empire, survived the storms that had shattered its Western counterpart. Constantinople became a beacon of civilization, preserving Roman law, culture, and learning for centuries to come. The fall of the Roman Empire was a momentous event, marking the end of an era. Yet from the ashes of this once mighty empire arose a new world. The legacy of Rome lived on in countless ways. Roman law formed the basis of legal systems across Europe. Roman engineering left an indelible mark on the landscape. Roman language, Latin, evolved into the Romance languages still spoken today. Roman culture continued to inspire generations to come. The fall of Rome is a reminder that even the mightiest empires can crumble. Yet it is also a story of resilience, of the enduring power of ideas and culture. For even in death, Rome lived on, its legacy woven into the very fabric of Western civilization. The Roman Empire may have fallen, but its legacy lives on, just like the questions it leaves behind. Got thoughts, insights, or even your own theory about Rome's fall? Drop a comment below. I personally read and reply to each one. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to Epoch 60 Degree and join our journey through time. More epic stories are just around the corner. See you in the next video.